What started off like a great game for the New York Mets and looked to be an awesome series victory of the Dodgers turned into a disaster in the eighth inning. I'll be breaking down the game on this edition of Locked On Mets.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. I've been covering the New York Mets on this show since the 2019 season. This is the only podcast that covers the Mets 7 days a week throughout the regular season. If you want to find any of my written work, you can do so over at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. I told you all on, this morning's show that I was planning to go live after the game today because it's good times right now with the Mets, and I wanted to talk on tomorrow's show about the Mets farm system, which I think is building up to be one of the best in baseball, and I was ready for a great, positive, happy, exciting Mets just beat the Dodgers in a 4-game set podcast where we just get to talk about how great this team is and revel in that for a little bit. And then tomorrow, talk about the farm system. Then you got the series coming up against the Rockies. I was already doing the math on the Mets being 20 games over 500 by the time they got back to Citi Field, because had they won this game, they would have been 40-23 on the season. 3 games about to play against the Rockies. Considering how well the Mets played against the Dodgers in this series, you sort of start to pencil in W's, and that's why you can't get ahead of yourself during a baseball season. The 8th inning was a disaster for the New York Mets. They were clinging to a 2-run lead. Reed Garrett had some troubles, and Brett Baty made a really bad play. I'm going to talk about the bad in the next segment, though. I want to remember the good from this game first, because setting the stage to get to that point, for those of you who maybe were at work and didn't catch the first 7 innings of the game that were awesome, you might not know why this loss is potentially as devastating as it is. I don't think in the long run this is anything that's going to screw up what the Mets have going on right now. They played great baseball in LA, and that is a very good Dodgers team. And it was one play that cost you, but we saw it in the World Series, right? We saw what happens if you are not perfect against this Dodgers team. If you give them extra outs, they're going to make you pay. And that is the overarching story of this game ultimately. But before that, the Mets lineup got off to a very good start, playing without Francisco Lindor, which I'll touch on in a final segment today. He suffered a broken pinky toe. Shouldn't be out of lineup too long. Still try to get himself in the lineup, but they're going to let him rest a little bit here. Nimmo is batting leadoff, and the lineup had a good beginning. Pete Alonso in the 2nd inning saw the first pitch and drove it out of the ballpark. Fastball in the outer half, went with it. His 3rd home run in the series, or 3rd or 4th? 3rd home run, multi-home run game, and then a home run there in that 2nd inning. Top of the 3rd inning, Brandon Nimmo and Starling Marte go back-to-back, giving the Mets a 3-0 lead. Pete Alonso gets hit by a pitch in that same inning. Jeff McNeil walks. Tyrone Taylor with a base hit, and then Brett Baty, a sacrifice fly, ends up netting the Mets a 4th run. So they were up 4-0. The thing is, they had opportunities to score a lot more runs throughout this game. You look at inning over inning, it seemed like they had traffic every time. They knock Landon Knack out of the game in the 4th after throwing 3 1/3. And then at that point, you're facing Jose Urena, who, we saw a pitch for the Mets this year. It's not like he's some outstanding pitcher, but the Mets just couldn't get anything across. Against Knack, 4 hits, walked 5 times, but unable to cash in on some of those opportunities. In the 2nd inning, before their big 3rd, you had 2 runners on as Tyrone Taylor and Brett Baty each drew walks with 1 out. The Mets did nothing with it. 4th inning, they again draw some walks, this time 3 of them, to load the bases for Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso strikes out. Jeff McNeil flies out. Failed opportunity to get a run in. 5th inning, Brett Baty with 1 out, lays down a bunt, gets on for a base hit. Francisco Alvarez grounds out, but you still have a runner on. Luis Angel Acuna gets a 2-out hit, so you have 2 runners on. Brandon Nimmo rips a line drive. Well-struck ball, nothing you could do about it, but it was right in Mookie Betts' glove, and the Mets were unable to score there. 6th inning, you get hits from Starling Marte and Pete Alonso. Juan Soto strikes out. Jeff McNeil has a long battle with Jose Urena, goes to 9 pitches, but he strikes out, and then Starling Marte gets picked off of third base. So that was another blown opportunity, a strike him out, pick him off double play. You don't see that too often. And the Mets, inning after inning, just could not get the job done. Through 7 innings, they only scored those 4 runs. Still a good day against the Dodgers offensively if you just look at the bottom line of, they got 4 runs across, eventually got 5 runs across, but they just could have had so much more. And they should have won this series. There's no doubt about it. They let this series get away. At the same time, you do credit the Dodgers because the Dodgers did a really nice job executing, but we also have to, before we talk about their execution in the next segment here, talking about where it all fell apart, I can't get too deep into this podcast without shouting out David Peterson, who put together another awesome start against this Dodgers team. He's getting deep into games. He's so effective getting the ball on the ground. His ability to get double play balls really helps him get deeper into games, and it seems like he's just always able to make that big pitch when he needs it. The 3rd inning was his only real struggle inning. He issued a walk to Miguel Rojas in front of Shohei Ohtani. You never want to do that. Ohtani gets a hit. Mookie Betts hits a double that drives in the first run. Will Smith gets a hit to drive in the second run. At that point, it's 4-2 Mets. Then they get a double play ball, but Teoscar Hernandez runs too well. He beats it out. And so another run comes across. 4-3, Mets still up. Peterson gets out of that inning and then holds that 4-3 lead throughout the rest of his start. 4th inning, gives up a leadoff single, gets a double play ball, gets another ground ball out of the inning in 8 pitches. 5th inning, Ohtani and Betts each get hits, both singles. Will Smith flies out. He strikes out Teoscar Hernandez, able to strand 2. 6th inning, again, leadoff single, double play ball, fly out, 9 pitches to get through the 6th. 7th inning, final inning, really strong finish, 1-2-3 frame, strikes out 2, including his second of the day against Ohtani, freezing him with 2 outs, 3-2 count, fastball on the outside corner, and just absolutely paints it. And Ohtani was probably sitting, I don't know what he was expecting to get, maybe something that was going to run off the plate, and instead just sticks the fastball there. So really nice pitching from David Peterson. 7 strong innings, 91 pitches to get through 7 innings. Maybe they should have stuck him out there for the 8th inning in retrospect, but I'm not going to knock Carlos Mendoza for going to a reliever that had a 0.68 ERA, if I'm not mistaken, going into this appearance in Reed Garrett. It just didn't work, but Peterson deserves all the credit on the front end of this show because he did everything he could to get a win. 7 hits allowed, walked 2, struck out 6, gave up 3 runs, but all in that 1 inning. He now has a 2.80 ERA in the season through 12 starts. I'll tell you right now, the one thing that I'm sure about at this point when it comes to this Mets rotation, the way David Peterson's pitching, he's a guy that you want to hand the ball to in October. Now, Kodai Senga, I could say the same thing about. I'm just wondering how he's going to last throughout the marathon. Peterson, I'm as confident in him right now as any starting pitcher the Mets have. Unbelievable effort, but it was wasted and ruined in the 8th inning because of one play by Brett Baty, and granted, some hits allowed by Reed Garrett, and credit the Dodgers for really making it tough on the Mets, but I want to go through how it all fell apart in just a minute. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing. Every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot, a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. And FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. And it's not just the NBA action. You can look at your MLB action as well. You can even look at the futures races. Maybe you like Pete Alonso to win the MVP because he's off to another great start in a month here. Maybe he repeats April and June and vaults himself right back into the MVP conversation. You can find all of those odds over at FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up because when you head to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you're going to get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you to all you who are tuning into the live stream right now. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Help us get to our next goal of 14,000 subscribers. All right, so let's talk about this 8th inning. The Mets actually get their insurance run in the 8th. A little bit too little too late. Should have had more runs on the board by that point, but Starling Marte gets a 2-out double. Marte swinging a great bat right now, and it shows you the impact of Juan Soto where with first base open, even though Pete Alonso killed the Dodgers in this series, They intentionally walked Soto to get to Pete, and Pete made them pay, ripping a base hit that scored Marte. Marte hitting over 300 in his last 15 games played. Alonso had a monster series, got multiple hits and multiple RBIs in each of the 3 games, went 7 for 13. Excuse me. I guess there was 4 games, so each of the last 3 games, I got to check back and see what he did in the first game. But regardless, last 3 games, 7 for 13 with 3 home runs, 9 RBIs. Huge series by Alonso. It doesn't really matter what he did in the first game. He was absolutely awesome, and he deserved better, just like David Peterson deserved better. The Mets should have won this game. Reed Garrett comes on, bottom of the 8th inning, issues a leadoff walk, then gives up a double that puts 2 runners in scoring position, gets a fly out, tying run, advances to third. So you have sac fly there. Ground ball should have been the second out, and you should have cut down the runner who was trying to score. Will Smith was a dead duck on a ground ball hit to Brett Baty. Baty, I guess, got caught in the middle when he saw Will Smith stop short of home, and he double clutched and spiked the throw. Francisco Alvarez couldn't make the tough pick on it. Reed Garrett does, and unfortunately, if Alvarez wasn't standing in front of the plate, he actually might have been able to make kind of a crazy play, but Alvarez almost picks, like basketball, gets in the way of Garrett and gives a open pathway for Will Smith to get in there and score what was the tying run at that point. So a huge blunder by Baty. It's crazy because once Will Smith stopped, he could have put the ball in his pocket, reached out and tagged him. He was that close, but you can't even hesitate. As soon as you get that ball, you fire it home. There's no running in before you make that throw. The running happens once the ball gets to Alvarez because you had him caught more than halfway. If you throw it, he's not going to get back to third. And if I'm not mistaken, Acuna had come over to cover third base. So you just got to get the ball out of your hand, throw it to Alvarez. Alvarez runs him back to third base, and then you get the out. Completely different ball game. Maybe Garrett gets out of that inning. Maybe Edwin Diaz closes out in the 9th. Instead, the inning is extended. Reed Garrett still nearly gets out of it, gets a strikeout for the second out, which would have been the final out of the inning had Baty made the proper play. Instead, innings extended. Garrett intentionally walks Freddie Freeman. Then Michael Conforto, who had looked awful all series, comes back to bite the Mets, gets a base hit that scores the game-winning run. And in the 9th inning, credit to Francisco Alvarez for getting a 2-out hit, and for Luis Angel Acuna for having a good battle with Tanner Scott before he flew out, but the Mets unable to get the game back tied and force a third extra innings game of the series. The Mets end up splitting a series with the Dodgers that they absolutely should have won. I mean, there's no doubt about it. They should have won this series. They had a 1-run lead in the 9th inning of Game 2. Huascar Brazoban gave up a home run, and that ended up pushing it to extras. The Mets lost there. And this one, they had it. They had it in hand. They had a 2-run lead. If Brett Baty makes that play, different ball game. It's unfortunate because Baty has been so good defensively this year, but that was a real blunder. That's a big mistake, and it cost the Mets. And you can even go back to the second game of the series and say Brandon Nimmo cost the Mets a game by not catching that fly ball off the bat of Freddie Freeman, but that ball had some crazy run to it away from Nimmo. It was hit really hard. That ball, typically, the way he struck it is a home run, so I'm not even looking back to that game and saying, oh, if Nimmo caught that, then the Mets may win the 11th. Like, no, that game was one that the Dodgers were able to pull out. And obviously they pulled out this one as well. But I feel like the game the Dodgers beat the Mets, the second game of the series, that was a Dodgers win. This one felt like a Mets loss more in the sense that if Baty makes that play, I think Garrett gets out of the inning. I think Edwin Diaz shuts the door in the 9th inning. So it's unfortunate because you were right there. You were on the precipice of beating the Dodgers in this series. All of a sudden, you go on the road. You've won 3 of 4 in LA. Then you get to play the Rockies, and again, everything was sort of lining up for the New York Mets to potentially be 20 games over 500 when they went home. Now, you go and you gotta now head to Coors, and you're leaving with a bad taste in your mouth. I don't think that really is going to impact the mindset of this team. I think they're going to shake it off and be fine. I do wonder about Brett Baty. I hope that this doesn't impact his confidence. You still want Baty to remain confident and playing well because he's such a huge part of this team right now, particularly with Mark Vientos out. But that was a rough one, and it's a tough way to lose a game against a good team. But again, that's what's going to happen when you play good baseball teams. You have to make every play. Those are the plays that come back to bite you. This was a playoff atmosphere, right? And all of these games were close. And it's a credit to the Dodgers for making the big pitches, for Mookie Betts catching the line drive or being positioned properly. So when Brandon Nimmo hits a line drive that could have scored another run, he's there and he's able to just reach out and grab it. It's not all as simple as the Mets blew this game, and because they blew it, we need to have all these reactions in the other direction of, man, yesterday Ryan was talking about how the Mets are the best team in the National League right now, and well, the Dodgers just proved that they aren't because of the way that they beat the Mets in this final game. I wouldn't go that far. I think if you watch this series play out, the New York Mets were in control of this series, and almost pretty much, they were in every single game. They were in control, and they definitely tripped up in the final innings of a couple of them. They're playing on the road against a tough team. You look at the season series, the Mets still won that. So if this was a repeat of the NLCS, the Mets took 4 of 7, but they should have had 5. And it's definitely a game you look back on and say, yeah, that one probably should have gone the Mets' way. It just sucks because they did so much to win the game. Pete Alonso having the series that he had, Brandon Nimmo hitting the home run that he did, Starling Marte, great game for him, starting against a righty and hitting the home run, hitting the double. I mean, he really did a good job from that 2-hole. And the Mets are playing without their best player in Lindor right now. Now, Pete Alonso is their hottest hitter again, and that's very encouraging moving forward because I think we could see Pete Alonso repeat April and really carry the Mets to a lot of wins in June. And that's what you would need to see if he was going to put together an MVP campaign. While I don't think that that's likely, that he could match someone like Shohei Ohtani offensively all year, or potentially edge out some more well-rounded players that, like Lindor, are good defensively and offensively. But Pete definitely is right back into that rhythm of being one of the hottest hitters in baseball, and that's a great sign you take out of this series. They just should have won this game. And then David Peterson deserved better because, again, an unbelievable start by Peterson. It really was. To look at your last 3 starts now, and you go up against the Dodgers twice and you get through 7 innings both times, that's impressive. And that's what the Mets are going to need if they stick with a 6-man rotation. I talked about this on yesterday's show. You need guys to pitch deeper into games, and Peterson's showing the ability to do that. And so that is, again, a really encouraging takeaway. I think overall, I look at this series against the Dodgers and say the Mets played great baseball for 4 days. They just only won 2 games when they easily could have won 3. But it is what it is. You can't do anything about it now. All the Mets can do is try to take advantage over the weekend. What I want to do in the final segment here is I want to briefly talk about Lindor's injury, and then we're going to look at the rest of this division and why things aren't all bad for the New York Mets losing this game. So we'll get to all of that in just a minute. If you're an everydayer that's always tuning into the show, make sure you become a Locked On Mets insider. This is our texting service. We get updates from me anytime news breaks on the Mets. You can ask me questions anytime. Take part in our Locked On Mets sign photo giveaways. Get the line graphic sent to your phone each day so you know in the starting lineup without ever having to go on social media. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider, find the link in the episode description or go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. Well, Francisco Lindor has some bad luck when he goes into Los Angeles. A couple years ago, you might remember in 2023, if I'm not mistaken, it was, he was in the hotel and he bashed his finger. It's like a closet door or something like that, and broke his finger. Now, you saw it on Wednesday night. He got hit in the foot early in the game. He broke his pinky toe, and that's why you saw him in pain a lot throughout that game as he was playing through that broken toe. And you saw him at one point slamming his bat in frustration. I don't think it was about getting out. I think it was about not feeling right on that foot. With that said, he's still pushed to be in the lineup for this game. Carlos Mendoza wisely gave him a day off. And honestly, I would give him at least Friday off. And if the Mets win on Friday, I would consider giving him the weekend off. Then that might sound like too much and crazy if he's wanted to get back in the lineup. But the way I would look at it, you got Ronnie Mauricio, you got Luis Angel Acuna. You have a couple guys that can start games, and you got pitching that they should be able to take advantage of at Coors. I would even just consider starting Mauricio for the first couple games of that series. You can then play McNeil and Baty And still, if you want to, DH Marte, the way he's swinging it, honestly, and kind of roll out the same lineup that you did in this game, except for maybe Mauricio instead of Acuna, because I think they'll hit in cores. And if you are able to sort of continue to steal games, it feels a lot like last year with the back injury for Lindor. If you can steal a couple games, get in some extra rest, you get to Monday when the Mets have a day off, you could give Lindor, what is that, like 5 days of rest. And then he's just going to have to play on it. It's going to be a pain tolerance thing. Carlos Mendoza said they were fortunate with where the break is, that it is just that. But the best thing for a broken toe is to get off of it. So if they can keep him off it for a couple days because of playing the Rockies, I think that might be a wise move. If they lose the first game against the Rockies, they feel like they just need him back, then of course it's going to be hard to keep Francisco Lindor out of the lineup. He wants to be posting every single game. But considering the Mets' depth right now at the shortstop position, some young guys that could take advantage of some Rockies pitching, I wouldn't be opposed to see him getting a couple days. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about on this show before we close it out is what else happened today. The Braves and the Phillies had worse losses than the Mets did. Okay, the Braves, you want to talk about blowing a game. They were up 10-4 in the 9th inning against the Arizona Diamondbacks. The Arizona Diamondbacks rallied to score 7 runs in the 9th inning on the road against the Braves. Raisel Iglesias has had a brutal season. He came in to try to get the job done after Scott blew it. And I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce his name. I think it is. And I've seen him before. I would never pick up a late inning reliever named Scott Blewett or just a reliever because Scott blew it. And that put Raisel Iglesias in the game when you didn't even think he was going to have to get in the game. It was a 10-7 game at that point, and he gave up the next 3 or 4 runs. So brutal loss by the Braves. They're 7 games under. They've lost 8 of the last 10. They're now, even with the Mets loss, 11 games out of first place. And the Phillies, they were playing great baseball. They were in a really great spot throughout May. They've now lost 6 of their last 7 games. Lost the final game of their series against the Braves, a series that they did win. Then the Milwaukee Brewers came to town, swept the Phillies. Phillies went to Toronto. They won the first game, lost the second game, and then got blown out again with Jesus Luzardo on the mound. Luzardo gave up 12 runs in his previous start against the Brewers, gave up 8 runs today, so 20 earned runs across his last 2 starts, and the Phillies ended up losing another series. They are a game and a half back. So the Mets still have a little bit of time before they're about to square off against the Braves and the Phillies. There's a big stretch coming up this month where they're going to face both of those teams. They take advantage this weekend against the Rockies, handle their business, come home. You have the Nationals and the Rays. The Mets can win the next 3 series. I mean, they're going to be fine. They are. It's a very unfortunate loss. I wish it didn't happen. I was so fired up to talk about this team off the heels of beating the Dodgers in this series and what that would have meant. But one bad play from Baty doesn't take away the rest of the series, doesn't take away the Mets played against the Dodgers, showing that they are right there with this Dodgers team. And the reason why I wanted to record a live stream, for one, obviously, it would have been nice to record it after a win, but I talked about it on yesterday's show. The reason that I wanted to have this live stream after the game is so I could cover whatever happened in the game for all you everyday listeners, and also give you guys some nighttime viewing of something if you wanted to. But I want to spend a whole show tomorrow talking about this farm system because we had our update over at Just Baseball of our top 100 prospects in the game. 6 of them were Mets, and 1 of our just missed. So we have guys that just fell off the top 100, guys that couldn't quite crack it. A list of 8 guys in a follow-up article that went up today. AJ Ewing was there too. So 7 prospects who are right there considered top 100 talents right now. This farm system is deep, and the MLB roster is pretty close to the Dodgers right now, clearly. So if you're talking about the Dodgers, who are supposed to have this perceived huge gap between them and every other franchise in baseball, I think the Mets have closed that gap. I think the Mets are right there with the Dodgers, and that's what we're going to be talking about on tomorrow's show, how this farm system now makes the Mets clearly a top-tier franchise in Major League Baseball and one that should be a sustainable winner for some time. Yes, rough game, really frustrating that they blew it, but the current state of the Mets is still really good, and I'd ask you to remember that as you are screaming into your pillows tonight, frustrated that the Mets blew what should have been a serious victory. But that's going to be all for this live edition of Locked On Mets. I appreciate all of you who tuned in. I'm going to have that full show on the Mets farm system and what it means for this franchise up for you tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. So make sure if you're watching right now, you hit that subscribe button. Throw the notification bell on too, so anytime that we go live between myself and Chris Schubert, who I think is probably just wrapped up his Locked On Mets postcast, giving you an additional post-game stream if you want to really commiserate in the misery. So you can definitely subscribe to our channel and catch both of us whenever a game goes or whenever a game finishes and one of us is going live on the channel, and to be notified anytime an episode drops. As always, thank you for listening as well. Those of you listen to the playback, make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first watch every day. Now for your second watch, check out Locked On Sports Today, which is going to keep you up to date with all the latest going on in the world of sports. Check out Locked On Sports Today, streaming 24/7 on YouTube.